news today. Ladies and gentlemen, cue the tape. We got a little Fox here. My friend Harris Faulkner announcing it.
Now, a New York appeals court has agreed to slash the amount of the bond that Donald Trump must post to cover a $454 million civil fraud verdict while he appeals it. So we're going to go from 454
oh boy. So, you know, this was totally nuts from the beginning. I told you how nuts it was. I mean, it's insane. Absolutely insane. Well, Donald Trump coming out and responding to the news today that the judge has decided to make it $175 million instead of $500 million. I mean, it's still kind of a crazy amount of money, let's be honest here, shall we? But it's better than $500 million. And he knows that. So watch him right outside the courthouse. This is just moments ago, just coming in. I want you to take a look.
You read the Andy McCarthy article, or Jonathan Turley, or many of the legals, I think almost every single one of them, that's not even a crime. We're being tried for something that's not even a crime. They say at most it's a misdemeanor, but there's no misdemeanor either. So we have violent criminals that are murdering people, killing people. We have drug dealers all over the place, and they go free and they can do whatever they want. But they go after Trump when there's not even a crime. And did you see the number of people were there? You had Colangelo, and behind him, and remember this, Colangelo was a DOJ guy. He's a Biden DOJ guy. Why is he in the Manhattan DA's office trying the case? That in itself is a conflict. He's in the Manhattan DA's office trying the case. I mean, that's called a conflict. And then, remember what I told you also, Mark Pomerantz, when Bragg heard about it, he went openly hostile. He said, that's one of the worst things I've heard, and you all covered that. Then all of a sudden, time goes by. You know, the great healer is time. Time goes by, and all of a sudden they forget that. But that's a terrible thing. Colangelo and Pomerantz, terrible thing. And the judge didn't want to rule on that. He said everything was fine, that what they did was fine. I don't think it's fine when they take a Hillary Clinton lawyer and put him in to prosecute me. I don't think that's fine. I think it's very bad. And he does it on the House.
You know, he's going to continue with the election interference argument, because when you look at all of this, right, they're coming on every which way to Sunday. We had the hush money thing going on there, too, that he was at court for. I'm going to get to that in a second. But you look at all these different cases, and they're so aggressively targeting him that you start to say, well, really, is this about that? Or is it about something else? Is it about the fact that he's continuing to move higher in the polls, and Joe Biden's White House is completely freaked out, as is the media establishment, as is the so-called establishment in government, the so-called deep state? I mean, everybody is freaking out except for the people that are supporting Donald Trump, totally freaked out that he may just win come November. I happen to think at this point, he's probably going to. We'll see. We can get into the nitty gritty of some of these poll numbers, but he's got good news coming out of a lot of states, including places like Michigan, ladies and gentlemen. I want to go to Donald Trump right outside the courthouse also earlier today, speaking that he effectively accepted this decision, but that this judge that sort of seemed to have teamed up with Letitia James in some way, shape, or form was really off his rocker and not doing any kind of service to the American people. Watch.
Thank you very much. Judge Gorin has done a terrible disservice to the state of New York. What he's done is terrible. Businesses are fleeing. You see that. We just released a statement on Truth. Businesses are fleeing and crime is flourishing all over the state, and what he's done is such a disservice and should never be allowed to happen again. New York State is being battered by his decision. So I greatly respect the decision of the appellate division, and I'll post either $175 million in cash or bonds or security or whatever is necessary very quickly within the 10 days. And I thank the appellate division for acting quickly. But Judge Gorin is a disgrace to this country, and this should not be allowed to happen. Thank you very much.
I mean, honestly, it really shouldn't. I'm blown away by the case itself, right? The case itself, which, hey, you know, look, I've been a business reporter my whole career. I look at it and say, why do we have Letitia James coming in and trying to value his assets when Deutsche Bank, his lender, and he had already come to a deal. And by the way, the deal was done and over. And Deutsche Bank got paid back, so everybody made money. I mean, it's bonkers. And then you come up with $500 million that you want for the bond? I mean, this is unprecedented. 175 million is pretty bad. Thank you very much. Apparently, he's going to be able to come up with the money. We'll talk about the windfall he just got from Truth Social and whether or not that's going to stick momentarily. But first, Eric Trump, his son, went on with my former colleague, Maria Bartiromo, over the weekend. Maria's just wonderful. I love her. She's one of the good ones out there. Anyway, she had him on her program there on Fox, and he spoke to this. I mean, just how bizarre. He was getting laughed out of town. He was going around saying, can we get $500 million, $500 million for bail? I mean, I wondered about it. Or were they going to have to put a consortium of banks together to do this deal? I mean, it's bizarre. It's strange. And he said they were laughing. That's what we've become, ladies and gentlemen, a laughing stock. Because our courts are so messed up, they're asking for ridiculous things. Let's watch Eric.
This is election interference, and they go out and they ask you to post a $500 million bond. Maria, I want to put that in context. I went out to the largest sureties in the world, the largest sureties in the country. They said, Eric, the last time we've seen a bond of that size is when we did the big dig in Boston, which was a $25 billion construction project that lasted almost 25 years. They're trying to put my father out of business. They're trying to take all his resources that he would otherwise put into his own campaign for presidency. This is New York State. This is what we're seeing. Letitia James campaigned on this promise, and now they're making him do something that's not physically possible. Putting up a $500 million bond. Bonds that size don't exist in this country. A $10 million bond is a large bond. A $15 million bond is an enormous bond. A $500 million bond. And Maria, remember one thing. The banks all testified Trump was the greatest borrower we've ever had. I mean, there was no victim. This is a crooked system with a crooked attorney general in a crooked court that literally wants to put my father out of business. And you know who they're actually going to hurt? They're going to hurt the thousands and thousands of employees that we have in New York State. These are janitors. These are doormen. These are, people that work in commercial buildings. They're going to hurt those individuals, not the executive. They're going to hurt those individuals. How about all the contractors that we employ to do build outs? How about everybody else that relies on our family, thousands of people, all for their own political vendetta? It's insane.
I'm trying to understand how this number came about, $454 million or $464 million, and what the real number is. How did they come up with this number?
You know what? It was a crooked number. There are no victims. There is no number. Right. The number should be zero. My father's run a great company. I run a great company. We've never had a default. We've never missed a payment. We've never been in a breach of covenant. Every single one of our lenders came out, and he goes out, and the judge comes out and says, I want to take disgorgement. I want to go back, and I want to take interest rates that you paid on mortgages and put it up to 10, 11, 12% and go back 20 years, and we already won this in the appellate court. The appellate court already said that there's a statute of limitation, that 99% of what he put in there is thrown out. But Maria, this isn't about this. This is lawfare. They want to hurt my father, who is winning the presidential race right now. He's beating Biden in every single poll, in every single swing state. He came out and said he wants to put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into his campaign. Right. And how do they deprive him of that? They have that judge that you have on the screen right there come up with an astronomical number, give you zero time to post a bond that's not even commercially available in the United States. No one's ever seen it.
Totally right. It's so bonkers. Well, they wanted him to have to sell his assets, right? Trump coming out on Truth Social and saying, nobody's taking my babies. Nobody's taking my babies. Trump Tower, his Westchester County golf course. I mean, there was Letitia on Friday filing the paperwork in Westchester County because she's already willing and able to seize assets, as she's told us over and over again. Here she is on ABC News saying, guess what I'm ready to do?
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Well, guess what, Letitia? It's not going to happen because he said he's going to pay the $175 million bond, which, by the way, again, is absolutely huge. Like, let me just emphasize that again. $175 million is a lot of money. I mean, it's not $500 million, but 175 is pretty unprecedented in the bond community as well for something like this. So it's not as though he's getting out unscathed, but don't tell the mainstream media that. Don't tell Letitia that. Don't tell AOC that. I mean, everybody seems to think that somehow he's getting a sweet deal. A sweet deal. I mean, for goodness sakes, he paid all the money back. Letitia thinks, Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million instead of the $240 or $250 million that even Bloomberg, I realize they're reporters with their own biases, but even Bloomberg is estimating it to be worth. I mean, come on. Well, AOC is flipping out. Over the weekend, she went on to one of her favorite networks, that would be CNN, and she was telling the anchor there, be ready because he's going to get treated differently than anyone else would. Yeah, he's treated differently. I'd go with that because nobody else would be facing 175 or a $500 million bond bail. No one else. Anyway, here's AOC back in her delusional world on that delusional network.
What do you say to an independent voter, an average voter who looks at what's going on with Donald Trump? You have his assets might be seized tomorrow. You also have the hush money case from the district attorney, Alvin Bragg of New York. You also have the Georgia case about election interference. You also have the special counsel investigation on election interference. You also have the classified documents case down in Florida. That's 5 cases.
In other words, there's a lot of cases.
To a voter, what do you say to a voter who says, well, that doesn't look like he's being treated equally before the law? That looks like somebody that the government is going after.
Has there ever been a president, Republican or Democrat, that has been subject to this level of criminal charges, indictments, and investigations? This is not about party. This is not about politics. This is about corruption and criminality. We're talking about an individual who ordered essentially a terrorist attack on the Capitol of the United States in order to retain power. That is not about being a Republican. It is not about being a Democrat. It's about being an unethical and individual who is subject and prone to criminality. And unfortunately, this is the state that we're in. And I actually think that the fact that it's happening in so many places and so many jurisdictions cuts in the face of that. This is not just New York. This is Georgia. This is federal courts as well.
Oh my goodness. So you hear how she's ratcheting up the language. Just be prepared, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even want to repeat what she said, but it's some pretty darn aggressive stuff. And there's a new characterization, if you would, of J6. It's more than just taking over the government now, right? I mean, you might as well be in Gaza listening to AOC, or rather in Israel as Gaza attacks, right? Oh my gosh. All right, so that's AOC. Meanwhile, the leftist media is out there and they're like trying to digest this all in real time. I was watching this morning and I'm like, okay, guys, he's not being treated differently other than the fact that he shouldn't be paying 175, let alone $500 million. Here is MSNBC trying to digest all the information that's coming into them and they can't quite get it all in real time. It must just be because the odds are stacked against Biden in favor of Trump for some corrupt purpose. I'm like, okay, am I in an alternative universe? Let's watch.
But I'm being told right now that that bond, that $500 million bond that had been set and that the former president had to deal with today, has now been reduced to $175 million. So that $465 million plus bond that he was looking at has now been reduced. As of right now, we're getting this breaking news. This appeals court allowing the former president to post a smaller bond of $175 million within 10 days. David, what does that tell you?
Jose, it tells me something that you and I have talked about before, and that is the playbook is different for former President Trump. We were literally talking about this the last time you and I discussed this case. I expect for them to do something for him that's different than what you see for everybody else when they go to court. So,
of course, you're going to see something that's different. It's going to be so much worse. It's going to be worse because it happens to be Donald Trump. But somehow in their minds, Donald Trump's getting a break on this. $175 million. Give me a break, you guys. Come on. But you know what? I will get back to this. I mean, if they can do it to him, who's to say they can't do it to you? You heard Donald Trump in that little press conference, sort of impromptu afterwards, saying, what the heck is wrong with New York City? Like, New York City is actually going to be ultimately penalized by this. I look at it and say the United States of America, it goes beyond New York. Because if you think you're going to start a business here, and if you're not protected by the courts because you happen to have a different political viewpoint and anybody can come after you, then heck, we really are some kind of banana republic. That's exactly what it feels like. And I told you this, guys, before. I'll tell you again. I started my career covering banana republics on the financial side back at Goldman years ago, back in like 1999, 2000. So I have seen my share of it, all right? And I've done a ton of reporting throughout my career all over those places, from Paraguay to Colombia to Mexico, to Brazil, all over, okay? And there's something that they all have in common that I used to think was sort of different about us. And that's it, it's all politics. It's all politics. People go into politics just so that they can get a little something off the top. Well, here we're supposed to be better than that, right? Wasn't that the idea? And yet we are no better. That's what we're seeing in real time. The idea that you're going to hit them with a $500 million, I'm sorry, even $175 million. This is unprecedented. And for what? What is the crime? Where is your victim? Really? I mean, everybody made money. Oh, Letitia's just mad she didn't make any? Is that the deal? I'm sorry. This woman campaigned on one thing and one thing only because she clearly has no talent to do anything else. Let's watch Letitia James. I know this is cringeworthy. I know we don't want to watch it, but we're going to watch a little bit because you got to remember every single day, and you tell all your liberal friends out there that somehow think he got off. He got off. Got off from what? I mean, where is the victim? Where is the crime? Let's watch Letitia.
President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House. That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered. We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this man.
Okay, we get the idea. All right? You remember, this is what she did. So she raised funds and she campaigned just to get them. And she was out there looking for some kind of crime. When she couldn't find a crime, like a real one, she gets this. Okay, so he inflated the square footage of his apartment. He thought Mar-a-Lago was worth more than she thought it was worth. I'll tell you, it's not worth $18 million. Thank you very much. I mean, CNN even had to admit that on live television the other night. But Letitia's angry. She's furious right now because she feels like she ought to be able to send him straight into bankruptcy. That's why she was filing paperwork in Westchester County as late as Friday. And she's still chomping at the bit, hoping that he can't come up with $175 million for his new bond that he has to post in 10 days' time. He did say he would do it. So, Letitia, take that.